They say the left hand, it drop mountains. They say the right hand, be slaying dragons.
All right, so this is a very important video, and this needs to be said because it's definitely an original thought, and it's something that I have a very deep conviction about, because I keep seeing it all the time, and I saw it over the weekend when Richardson Hitchens, when he missed weight against, or not when he missed weight, when he pulled out of the fight against Oscar Duarte. He made weight both times. But when he pulled out of the fight, Hitchens and a lot of his not Hitchens, but a lot of his fans and a lot of people in boxing, they started doing what they always do. They started complaining about the IBF, talking about how the IBF is wrong and the 10-pound rehydration clause it does more harm than good. And you know what? Nah, man. Listen, I'm gonna tell y'all what the real deal is about the IBF. The IBF is the best belt in boxing. I wish the whole sport of boxing was ran like the IBF, really, because I come on here every day and I hear boxing fans complain about politics and things they don't like about the sport. You know, the WBC playing favorites, the WBA randomly ranking somebody who won some, garbage can belt, right? The IBF doesn't really have a ton of regional titles like the other sanctioning bodies do. The IBF, for the most part, does a pretty good job of honoring their mandatory system. You know, unlike the WBC and the WBA, who have they have rules that are at their discretion. They make things up as they go because they have these bylaws that are in their rules where they can just pick and choose what they want to do. IBF's not like that. The IBF is a rules sanctioning body. So what I've noticed is that a lot of boxing fans get upset because a mandatory will get due or ordered, and a lot of times those mandatories from the IBF get paid step-aside money and or unification fights get made. So they're playing the waiting game. And the IBF's like, nah, man, you got to fight your mandatory. So people get upset. They get angry. And I'm going to say this, guys. If the whole sport of boxing was ran like the IBF, you'd get more fights on a consistent basis because, you'd have the sanctioning bodies following their rules. And what I'm noticing, too, is like, the only people that complain about the IBF are fans of fighters where the IBF has hindered their fighters. And to that, I would say this. You can sit here and say there's no such things as weight bullies in boxing, which is fair, because if you can make the weight, you can make the weight. However, you don't get to complain about the rules if you go for one of the belts and it does work in your favor, right? And so a lot of these fighters who fight way too down in weight, because they don't really have the skills to actually beat up anybody their own size, and they're not really like that, they complain about the IBF. Certain fighters who could win world titles choose not to even fight for a world title because they feel like, the 10-pound rehydration rule, this, that, and the third. So my thing is, you see it in every weight class. Like, I see it in every weight class. In every weight class, from 105 to heavyweight, the IBF exposes everything. It'll expose if a fighter is really wants to be champion and will fight as mandatory. It'll expose if a fighter is fighting way too down in weight. Now, of course, the IBF doesn't come with its fair share of flaws. It does come with its fair share of skeletons in their closet, as do all the other sanctioning bodies in boxing, and as does everybody else in life in general, right? Back in the 1990s, Robert Lee, the then president of the IBF, he got caught up in a scandal for wire transferring. Bob Arum was wire transferring Robert Lee hundreds of thousands of dollars to move George Foreman up the rankings, and they had to go to court, and it's a whole big thing. Just go Google it, right? So they definitely, in the past, 25, 30 years ago, they were part of some serious corruption, right? But all these sanctioning, well, there's money and where there's power and where there's a battle for influence in a multi-billion-dollar industry like boxing, there's always going to be some sort of corruption, and that's for anything in life. But nonetheless, when we're talking about this fight game and which sanctioning body treats the fighters the fairest, in my opinion, it is the IBF. Like, look at, and I'll do a separate video on this later on, but look at this whole Richardson Hitchens situation where he was scheduled to fight Oscar Duarte and defend his belt on the Ryan Garcia Barrios undercard. He winds up pulling out the fight at the 11th hour, and and Oscar Duarte gets left out in the dark because there's been a mandatory due for quite some time now, and it's about that time for Hitchens to defend the belt. So guess what? Even though it's gonna screw Duarte, the mandatory is due, and the IBF will make sure that the mandatory gets a shot at the title. Now, should the IBF mandate that Duarte fight the winner of Hitchens versus Delgado? Yes, because I think it's only fair. You know, Duarte didn't do anything wrong. He was professional. He made the day before weigh-in and the second day weigh-in. But that's just an example of one of many examples I can give you of the IBF being consistent. So yeah, I mean, like I said, there's definitely flaws. There's definitely you know, skeletons in the closet, like with anything else in boxing. But for my money, you know, if we're comparing it to the WBO, the WBC, and the WBA, I think the IBF has the best track record of enforcing the mandatories, fairness, following the rules, those kind of things. And I think that's what everyone should be looking for in boxing, is for these power brokers, these sanctioning bodies to adhere to and follow the rules that they themselves wrote. Because how unprofessional doesn't look if you make some rules up and you don't actually follow your own rules. So in closing, guys, if you have a problem with the IBF, odds are is that you're a fan of a fighter and it's affecting them in a way that you don't like. And if it's affecting them in a way you don't like in terms of weight, then they need to move up in weight closer to the actual weight, and stop trying to be weight bullies, you know? And again, like I said, you can say there isn't weight bullies in boxing, but if you're having a problem rehydrating properly, then you're weight bullying, in my opinion. So that's why I stand on the matter. What do you guys think? What's your take on the IBF? Because a lot of people have had a lot to say about the IBF in regards to some of the mandatories that get called, in regards to maybe sometimes them playing a role in blocking these big time undisputed fights. But my thing is this: like, if you just fought your mandatory and got it out the way, you wouldn't have these issues, right? In most cases, which a lot of fighters don't. A lot of fighters like to put off their mandatories. And with a lot of sanctioning bodies, the mandatories get screwed and have to play the waiting game. Look at what's going on with Suleiman Sissoko, who's been the WBC mandatory for a long time. He had to sit and wait in line for Pacquiao, and then they elevated Conor Bennett above him, and he still hasn't got his shot. And he's been mandatory for well over a year now. So I'm gonna leave it at that, guys. That's my take on the IBF, the glorious red belt. I think it's the best belt in boxing. And it's been a popular discussion for a long time now. So what do you guys think about the IBF? Do you guys like how they do their business? Or do you feel like, you know what? Nah, man, the IBF's doing too much to destroy boxing and get in the way of these big fights and those kind of things. Either way you feel, leave it in the comments. I'll definitely read them. Take time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me. But I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys.
Thank you for watching True School Sports.
Thank you for watching another video on the untouchable True School Sports empire, the home of boxing. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, guys. So help us keep being great. Help us keep pushing out that real boxing content for the fine folks all around the world. And make sure you jab, you hook, you Mike Tyson, you Mayweather that subscribe button. Pops, show them how do they gotta hit the subscribe button. Pop, pop, pop.